Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Thanks so much for being here. It's great to be here. And again, I apologize for the inconvenience on the delay. Circumstances outside my control. So I appreciate your patience. And we have left the link in the live chat for you to join us. We've got an much abbreviated live show tonight and call-in show. Let's see, it's a few minutes after 8 o'clock. We will need to wrap up around 8:45 Eastern time. So jump on in, grab your spot in line, and we will talk college football, whatever's on the table. So I typically come up with a title. Defending the bowl season was what hit me, certainly when I scheduled tonight's live stream. But whatever's on your mind concerning college football, the transfer portal, National Signing Day is coming up on Wednesday. As is usual, we will have a big extravaganza of updates and analysis and live streams, live updates constantly on Wednesday. So lock in on Wednesday. We'll be here all day throughout National Signing Day here at the Voice of College Football, including our specific shows on the Michigan, Florida State, Miami, and Oklahoma channels on Wednesday. So join us there. So the only time I won't be doing updates and live streaming here on the main channel is because I'll be on the Oklahoma, Florida State, Michigan, and Miami channels during National Signing Day on Wednesday. All right, we'll get right to it. But before we get to our first call, we've got Erica on the line. Thank you so much for that, Erica. We appreciate you being here. Are you all right? We were concerned. Yes. Thank you for that. Just, I will say it this way, a few people know, but just ongoing health issues in the family that need to be addressed pretty much on a daily basis. So, of course, sometimes it takes me away for several hours each day, but on particular days, I really can't schedule or figure out when that's going to be. All right. Thank you so much for that, Erica. That's very kind of you. And thank you so much for the sentiments there. Erica will let you know that the Iowa Hawkeyes live show is certainly a destination that you want to put into your calendar. Iowa Live with our buddy Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm every Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern. All right. First call of the night coming in from our friend Chris. How you doing tonight, Chris?
Fine. How are you, Mark?
I am doing just fine.
Oh, do you mind if I weigh in on I don't want to make it a sore point, but you're probably the least racist person I can think of in the world, so I don't know that you have to worry about that being an issue for you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, no, I don't know Deion Sanders, and I don't know why anybody would, they might just been frustrated that, maybe he threw an opinion out there that they didn't like. That might be the cause. I don't know. I shouldn't speculate about it, I guess, but.
Yeah, and I understand in this day and age that there are all sorts of people being called, unfortunately, being unjustly called. Of course, we all know that there are racists out there, but unjustly being called that term on a regular basis. And I've been in that batch for the last few years since that's becoming more of a hot button topic. And since social media is what it is, and people have suggested to get off of social media, which I would love to do, but that's kind of my place in life is to be there. But I appreciate that, Chris. That's very nice of you. And just to explain my comment to everyone, if you didn't catch it on Deion Sanders. So this is my viewpoint, and that doesn't mean it's the correct viewpoint, but Deion Sanders chose to take another job at Colorado University, leave Jackson State. If I were in charge of the administration at Jackson State, I know that what I would want to do, but I believe I would defer to the players since it's their team and they were the ones who played for this particular coach. And if they really wanted him to stay and coach that game, granted, we all know that there are situations in which all of us have taken another job and then filled out another 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever the case might be at our current job. But we didn't go to our next job and work there and then want to come back for some big grandiose event. So that's the difference there, among other things. I won't go into it because I don't want to take your time, Chris.
Oh no, you don't ever apologize to me, Mark. You shouldn't even think you should try to. I mean, I'm an impediment to you, I think.
No,
Um,
not
well,
at all. Never
I,
think that.
well, I appreciate that, Mark, because I get a lot of criticism, probably justifiably in the chat for things that I bring up, and I might get it for this too. But regardless, I would have been upset too. I mean, if I'd have been in your shoes, I don't. Being critical and being racist are so far apart. It's not even, it's not even fair to say that they're the same thing. So I don't. If we're gotten to that point where you can't throw criticism at somebody, I think that's pretty sad. But
Yeah.
that's why
I've been critical of other coaches in that same exact situation, regardless of their race. So that was the furthest thing from my mind. I didn't even consider that. I probably should in this day and age. I should actually process that, but I may be a little bit too naive or too just straightforward to even consider those type things when I make a statement like that. I'm just simply going based on the employee-employer relationship and the contract that was broken and moving on to another job. That's all that was in my thought process.
Right. Well, I think part of I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you know all about this. So if I bring up stuff that's kind of elementary, I apologize. But I think part of the reason Sanders was hired with Jackson State wasn't he? He said he was going to try to bring that program up to a higher. Wasn't he? He wanted to bring them up to pretty much where they are, I guess. But what was his? I think he wanted to take them to another level. I think, didn't he? Wasn't that part of it?
Well, I would hope that he wants to bring them to a new level. They won one game this year. So if they're going to pay him $6 million for him not to elevate their level of play, then they are in trouble.
They were only 1-10 or something.
Yeah, 1-11 this year.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I was under the impression that he'd done real well there.
No. I'm talking about Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he only lost one game. And the chat can correct me if I'm wrong on his record, but I believe he was, whatever the record, 12-1 at Jackson State this year.
Oh yeah, I thought I looked it up. I thought they were 12-0.
Yeah, I believe they lost their last game.
Oh, okay, so they did lose again.
Their game this Saturday.
I understand. Was there one other thing I think I was going to bring up? I don't want to waste. You spent so much time with me last time. I don't want to take away from other people's opportunities to call in. So I guess I was just wanting to know what your thoughts were, I guess, about the expanded playoff, I guess, because can that work well, you think, in with the bowl format? Is there a plan to kind of incorporate some bowls in there, or is that not it? I thought they were.
Yes, I believe that that's the case. However, the first round of games are going to be on campus. Therefore, those aren't going to be bowl games. So then that takes us from 12 to 8. And so then I would think that the bowl games could be incorporated for those 4 games and then the 2 semifinal games. So you have 6 bowl games that could be used.
Right.
Which would be the New Year's 6 games.
I have to admit, for as far as a format, even though I'm still pretty. I think the beast, and we've already talked so much about it. I don't, like I say, it turns people off for me to bring it up. But even this year, I think at the very least, I think a case could be made that a BCS might have worked appropriately for the circumstances. But I'm not necessarily against the idea of an expanded playoff because I understand how that might fit in better with moving forward, I guess, and getting a greater percentage of teams that maybe otherwise wouldn't be given the opportunity, at least a chance to compete. So I can definitely see the advantages of it. I just kind of wonder, that's going to prolong the back end of the season, won't it? To where, I guess what I'm curious about is, won't they have to kind of maybe cut back on the, like the FCS does? They only have, I think, 10 games per year. Well, I know they have as many as 12, but as far as to make it work, won't they have to cut back maybe on the number of games in the regular season?
Yeah, so that's a great point that you make right there, Chris, because the dilemma is, do we reduce the number of regular season games for everyone just because there are going to be a small number of teams that are going to be extended an extra game? So when you really think about it, 12 regular season games, a conference championship game is 13. The most anyone can play right now is 15 games. In the new format, the most games that anyone could possibly play would be 17, but those would be the teams that play in the first round. Most likely, the favored teams in this format would play 16. So it's going to be an additional game, but there's a possibility of 2 additional games. Therefore, to your point, I believe that it would be fair. It would be caring to cut back in the regular season by 1 game. But then for all those teams that don't go to the playoff, or only play 1 game in the playoff anyway, just like a postseason game now, you're eliminating 1 game of opportunity, of revenue, of all those things,
Sure.
of opportunity for their fans to watch them play. You're eliminating all that for the great majority of teams, over 90% of the teams.
That's the other question I have, Mark, and I don't expect you to know off the top of your head, but are the majority of all because I'm curious about this myself. I know my guess would be that the power conference teams probably do pretty well. I'd be surprised if they didn't, and might even benefit by having a prolonged, I guess, I don't know if you call it prolonged. It's not really prolonged, expanded, or I don't know. greater participation. I can see how it might benefit but is it that way too for I don't want to say, I don't necessarily like using the labels, but I guess teams that aren't part of the P5, do they benefit to the same extent? Maybe are they limited? I guess I wonder what their prospects are as far as, are they limited and how they can profit from it?
Oh, the way that they're going to profit from this playoff?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to, I don't know that this is going to be equal distribution, but if it is, then they're going to profit only 1/12 of what the Power 5 schools and conferences will profit. So they're only going to receive 1 bid.
Well, I don't know that I expect that they'd get more than that. That's probably what they deserve, but so they share that revenue or whatever. They share that's shared amongst that 1/12 or whatever that percentage is. That's shared amongst all, or is it just that's shared? Isn't it? Isn't that shared revenue between?
I don't know that that's been disclosed.
Oh,
but that would make sense that they would either receive 1/12 or, having participated in however many games they advance, that they would participate in that portion,
right,
of the total number of games. So it would change every year depending on if that team advanced.
So I guess the question I have for you, Mark, if you don't mind, is, because I don't want to take more of your time, but so before they put this, I know that it was something I think that had to be represented I know they didn't all agree to it immediately. There was a few conferences I think that weren't quite as accepting of it maybe as others, but yeah. I know eventually it went through. So do they take all those things into account? Maybe how much money and all that? Is that all kind of factored into it, or?
Oh, absolutely. That is the number one factor. They're factoring money. So, and there has been, out of all the reports that have come out about this playoff going back to last summer, so it's been a year and a half that this bid was first proposed and made public, I have not heard one comment by anyone of an official capacity state that they are seriously contemplating peeling back the number of games and eliminating 1 game from the regular season.
Right.
And certainly you wouldn't think that the group of 5 would do that, because they're only going to get 1 team in, and that team, let's be honest, most likely will not win that game. So they will only play 1 game. And even if that team did advance, it's only 1 team out of 65. Therefore, why would they eliminate all those regular season games that would cost them all that money just with the consideration of 1 team?
With that, and I know we've already kind of talked about it, but is that one guaranteed? I guess it's guaranteed. Maybe it's not. Let's just pretend that it is, because I don't know how they choose the teams, to be honest with you. I don't know that I would make it guaranteed either. I think I'd make it to where they'd have to be in the top 12 to even go, but let's just pretend it's guaranteed. Do you think, in terms of representation, does that fit in pretty well with what you think it ought to be like? I know that, in general, I think the G5 is less capable maybe of even making a challenge, but does that 1/12, I guess, does that fit pretty well with what you think they deserve?
I think it's reasonable. I have said ever since the playoffs started in 2014, as it pertains to the group of 5, that I either wanted to see them officially included or officially excluded, not just this vague criteria that would leave it up to the selection committee to include or disclude them, when we had two UCF teams that were undefeated that were not anywhere close to the top four. I believe they were 8 and 12 in those rankings. And then we finally got Cincinnati to go through as a representative. So I thought it was always a tease to the group of 5 teams, and it was an unfair situation for the group of 5. So I either wanted them to be dealt with directly, to say, why don't you play your own playoff or do whatever you want to do, because we are excluding you officially, or we are including you officially. And that's what they've done. So I'm fine with that. But to your point, I believe Tulane this season, I don't know where they're ranked right now, but they're not ranked in the top 12. So many times, I would think most years, there's going to have to be a jump in rankings. There is going to have to be the committee's going to have to go outside the top 12 to grab that best group of 5 champion to be included in the playoff most of the time.
I don't know if you know, I mean, you're busy and I don't, but I did send you kind of what I thought was, at least from the way I assess teams, kind of where they stack up, I guess, by proficiency rating. Well, Tulane, I think they finished 9th in my assessment. But you can make of it whatever you want. You can make it you don't like it or whatever. But I had them at 9. So I think it's, relatively close to, I think, where they should be. I know that's not where they are, but that would leave them outside an 18 playoff, obviously, bracket. Not saying that I would decide that, but if they based it on my proficiency rating, that would leave them out. And then at 12. So I was kind of curious what you thought. If do you think that's a reasonable place to put them, or for like a seeding, maybe for like potential seeding? Is that fair? Or is that maybe too slanted towards the?
Well, I would say that certainly based on the criteria that's lifted Cincinnati into the playoff last year, which was, of course, more than the rest of their resume, their performance at Notre Dame in winning that game. And similar to that, Tulane went to Kansas State and won that game by a touchdown. And Kansas State, of course, went on to win the Big 12 championship, albeit with 3 losses, but still won the Big 12 championship game. So they validated themselves considerably with that win. They play in a really good conference in the American Conference and have wins over the likes of UCF, Cincinnati, and others. I don't believe they're the 9th best team in the country, but it shouldn't be based on what I believe. I think that's somewhat fair.
I guess what I'm leading into, Mark, is, and I'm not saying it should be this way, so I don't want you to get the wrong idea, but let's just kind of like playing make-believe here. Let's make believe that I had the authority, which I don't, and probably shouldn't, but let's just pretend I did. Let's just say, would that be like, as far as the seeding, do you think that might work, being 9? Is that maybe too slanted towards their being better than they should be, or how would that? I guess my point is they're going to be in there anyway.
Yeah.
But what do you think of a 9 seed as far as seeding?
For this particular team, or for every best group of 5 to seed 9th?
Well, no, I'm tailoring it to this. I'm tailoring it to this particular. Yeah. So it would be this Tulane team. Yeah. I'm tailoring it to this season. I'm not trying to put it like, as far as, it's just where I think they should be. I think I had Cincinnati 16th before they lost. And I think I told you where Air Force, I had Air Force tied with Notre Dame, which people aren't going to like that probably, but that's where I had them regardless, is I had them tied with Notre Dame.
Well, I do not believe in any such way that Tulane has the 9th best resume in the country.
Okay. Well, that's fair, I guess. Well, they aren't rated that high anyway. I mean, I think you look at the polls or whatever, I think they're like 14th or something like that. Now, should that be enough maybe to shut them out of maybe a bracket that's based solely on ranking then? If they're 14th, would you shut them out of that then if they're 14th?
Well, if we're just strictly going by the rankings and not including the group of 5.
I guess my point is, if they're not in the top 12, why should they even be in there then? If they're not rated in the top 12. That's kind of where I was leading into that, I guess.
Well, that's a valid point. That's a valid perspective. But the perspective that the committee has taken is that the group of 5 is going to be included. And they don't even state it that way. What they state is that the top 6 conference champions will be automatically included in the playoff.
Oh, okay. Well, that would automatically include them anyway then.
Yes.
I understand now. And then what would the next 6 are at large?
Yes.
And then do you know how those are chosen?
By the committee,
Oh,
just like they do now, the selection committee, the college football playoff rankings.
what do you think do you like the idea of a committee making all these decisions? Do you think that's a good way to do it?
No.
Oh.
I do not. And that doesn't even mean that I believe that they do a poor job, because I don't. I generally agree with them. I think that they're placed in a difficult place. I'm not saying I personally could do better. I just don't like people selecting playoff teams.
Right. Do you think they work together probably with each bowl? I'm thinking they might. That each bowl, they maybe have like somebody from the bowl maybe kind of telling them what they want. You think that's a possibility?
No.
You don't?
No.
I always assumed that was probably part of it. Since you have the 6 bowls.
It better not be part of it. Then if that is part of it, and I'm not saying that's not possible, which we all have conspiracy theories, but if that is part of the process that we don't know about, then that completely flies in the face of what they are called to do. They are called to rank the top 25 teams in the nation based on their resume. That's it.
Well, no, I was operating on the assumption that since they're actually working together with the Bulls, I just assumed the Bulls would maybe kind of let them know in advance maybe who they might want, and then they maybe try to work through it to where they all make each bowl gets what they need.
I would hope not, because that is certainly not what they are paid to do, called to do. I don't know that they're paid. I don't believe they're paid, but what their purpose to do.
All right. All right. Thanks, Mark.
All right, Chris. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Joey's got it right here. Shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section down below in all the videos. I don't believe it's here in this particular video because it's added later in the description section. But if you go to the video of your choice, any on the main channel here, and most of the team channels, go to the description section. You will see Amazon link in caps. Grab it right there. I did some Amazon shopping for the betterment of the channel this week, and also need to do some more Amazon shopping myself this week. So when you do, please put the link somewhere where you will remember it, and we will all shop at Amazon using the Voice of College Football link. We got Reasonable Gump on the line. Wow, we are blessed tonight.
Mark, I'm doing just great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good, well, man. So I just got 2 things I wanted to touch base with you on here. First one's a little shorter. I watched your rant video today, although it wasn't an angry rant I was hoping for, but
it was still
kind of cool.
Angry? I didn't come across angry.
No, I kind of wanted to see the helmets, fly off the walls and stuff like I've seen before. But
I was only angry about one thing, and that was about being unjustly accused. That was it. Just the top of the rant was where I was pissed off, but I guess that didn't really take too well, nor did I really. Well, I did say that. So I don't know if you saw at the top of the comment section, I posted a comment, and I want to thank one of our viewers here who pointed this out and was just looking out for my best interest, and actually pointed out something to me that ran through my mind while I was making my statement, because I said a couple things that are frowned upon here on this platform. One was I basically described a physical beating action that could be taken against such people. And of course, I don't mean that literally. I didn't mean that literally.
mm-hmm.
I basically said that those people should be taken behind a woodshed and have a shovel, cracked, slammed up into their skull or something like that. And I don't mean that literally, but of course we live in an over hypersensitive age where people would take offense to that and feel as though I believe that I'm, inciting violence. So this viewer rightfully said, and that went through my mind actually when it came out of my mouth. And they said, you need to take that down. YouTube has guidelines, and boom,
Right.
State it right there that you're inciting violence. And I'm like,
Even though you're not.
yeah.
Well, anyway, mainly, obviously I got to have, one or two things to say about the Saban part of your video, and I've made this comment, or just kind of like noticing before, but I just believe that Nick Saban has made, or he has kept, sort of a old fashioned kind of culture ish, if you want to call it that, at Alabama, where when they asked Bryce Young and Will Anderson, "So are you guys going to play?" and they made what I consider the correct response is, "What? Well, duh, I'm going to play. I'm on the team, aren't I? Why are you even asking me?" I mean, that should be every single player's response, because you're on the team. That this wasn't an issue 10 years ago. It wasn't even that long ago.
No.
And guess what? The whole thing about injuring yourself before getting a draft, well, that's always been there. That's not a new risk. That's always been a risk for college players. But ever since that piece of origami over there from UCLA, Josh Rosen was pretty sure was the first one to do it. He sat out. He started a trend, and now it's considered, unfortunately, it's just considered normal. You have teams that lose, upwards of 20 players who just sit out.
The first two I remember were Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette in the same postseason in 2016.
Did Christian McCaffrey sit out at Stanford?
Yeah.
Then I obviously have that wrong. I know. I remember one that was pretty.
You said it wrong. I'm saying those are the first two I remember.
Okay. I know a big deal was made out of when Josh Rosen did. I also remember when Nick Bosa at Ohio State decided to stop playing like 8 games into the season or something.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's sad that we've reached this point where it needs to be highlighted, the fact that, well, no one at Alabama is going to sit out. And I thought it was noteworthy to point out, back when we were in the Citrus Bowl against Michigan, how, as you rightly stated, we only had 2 players sit out. Our Jerry Jeudy could have easily sat out. He was going to be a top first round pick no matter what he did. And of course he didn't. He played, and we look good for it. Some people would say that a couple of those players probably moved their draft spot up in that game because we played so well. And of course, then you could have thought that, well, maybe that was just a fluke. Maybe Alabama just had a particular crop of players who just all really wanted to play or something. But nope, here we are again. Mm-hmm. We're playing in a game that not a single Alabama fan or player wants to be playing in. And on the other side, not a single player wants to opt out, wants to quit. We need to stop saying opt-outs, by the way. We need to start saying what it is, quitting.
They're quitting on their team.
Yeah.
So we have players opting out or quitting on their teams, and their teams are advancing to bowl games that are really good rewards of successful seasons based on those teams and those programs' standards. In Alabama's case, that's a disappointment.
Right.
Not making the playoff and going to this bowl game, even though it is the Sugar Bowl, and anyone that's been around college football for more than a few years has some knowledge of the Sugar Bowl being a big deal. But even in the case, so I'm even highlighting that in Alabama's case, the bowl game's a disappointment, and they are still all showing up. And I don't know that I had anything insightful to say about that. I didn't bring it up because I thought I had something unique to say or something rather insightful. I just wanted to make a statement to highlight, because Alabama just experienced a disappointing season, and Saban, because of the ridiculously high standards he has established there, he's taking shots. I saw somebody post the other day, and I'm not talking about just some goofball. I'm talking about somebody that's a writer, like on a reasonable site like a Rivals or a 247 sites, Sports Illustrated, that Saban needs to be preparing his his successor because he's obviously lost it and he should be just about ready to leave. And I'm like, seriously? Like, they lost 2 games on the final play of the game. They're one of the top 5 teams in the nation, and they just came within 4 or 5 minutes of winning a national championship last year. Leave the guy alone. He's great. He is still arguably the best. And I just wanted to basically highlight that he is obviously still continuing to do something significantly right. That's an understatement, that he's doing something right to not only win the games at the level that he still does, but to have that much loyalty from his team.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and there really honestly shouldn't be anything insightful, about it. It's just everyone should. This shouldn't be like, everyone look at Alabama. They're getting all their players to play. Like, that shouldn't be the case. It should be normal. It should be what's expected, is what I'm trying to say. But it's just unfortunate. It's actually unfortunate that we're being highlighted for something that's good, because not anything that we did, but just that the times we're living in. All right, so hey, second topic is I'm going to take you up on the topic of your video, and I'm going to come at you from the other side of this.
Okay.
So I hear a lot. Your typical response to people who say there's too many bowl games is don't watch them. If you think there's too many, you think these are trash games, well then just don't watch it, right?
Sure.
No one's making you watch it. So here's the problem I have, and I haven't watched. Perhaps some people have made the same point, so I'm not sure. But the problem I have is that it doesn't just make those particular games that have 6-6 versus a 7-5 team, or occasionally you even get a team with a losing record, a 5-7 team in there somehow. It's not just that those games are bad. It's the fact that those games, like the Cactus Bowl and the Cheez-It Bowl, pretty soon we're probably going to have a Toys R Us Bowl. These are all basically, if it comes down to it, the same thing. They're in the same basket as games like the Sugar Bowl and the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, and all these ones that you would think of as on a higher tier. Well, what's really the difference? The fact that we just sort of arbitrarily we arbitrarily assign a higher tier to the Rose Bowl than we do the Cactus Bowl. But in reality, they're both postseason games. They both get the same amount of TV hours. They're both games that players opt out of or quit on their team for. Again, assuming this is the year when the Rose Bowl is not in the playoffs, obviously. So my problem is that because there got to be so many bowls, it's made all of them sort of be assigned this doesn't matter. This bowl game, this quote, you've heard this one before, right? Meaningless bowl game.
Yep.
I think, like, for example, my wife really loves purses, all right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to find Michael Kors purses next to, some dollar store version. They don't want to be seated next to that because it's going to make them look like, they're in the same tier. Well, they're not. Yep. One cost $20, the other cost $2,000. So I think that's the problem, is bowl games sort of all occupy the same type of feel of a game. And because there's so many that teams that with a tying or barely winning record can get into, it's like, okay, so what do bowl games even mean? What do you actually have to accomplish to get into a bowl game? You need a 50-50, you need a 500 season. And that's all you need to get into a bowl game. So what does that really mean? So I think that's the problem. It's not that we can just not watch it, because trust me, if it's not an interesting game at all and I got something else better to do, I probably won't. I'll admit that. But it's the problem that is because that sort of feeling that this game doesn't matter for a lot of people has seeped up into what we would consider to be the big bowl games.
Are you ready for my counterpoint?
I'm always ready for your counterpoint.
All right. So, at what point did this decreasing in value based on the lower tier bowl games start? Because it sounds like, based on what I know of you as a college football fan and based on your current argument, that this was a semi-recent dynamic, correct?
Yeah. Well, yes, but only mainly because the whole social media aspect, like what you and I are doing right now, or watching college football streamers and stuff, that's also a recent thing. So they all get. That's mainly why all these terms and stuff get spread around more easily, because all of this is recent.
Yes. You don't think that the Sugar Bowl was devalued in 2005?
It was no, I don't.
Okay. Because everything that you say, I understand your point, and your points are always valid. But when I put that within a framework to make it make sense to me, I'm thinking that you're having to go back to the 1930s or 40s for it actually to make sense. And this is why. Let's go back to the 1980s. Let's go back to the 1970s, the 1990s, and we had the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, etc., also in the same bowl season as things like the Tangerine Bowl and the Garden State Bowl and the Blue Bonnet Bowl and the Freedom Bowl and a lot of other bowl names that were far more ridiculous sounding than that. The Blockbuster Bowl. So if that's what's devaluing the big bowl games now, then why weren't they being devalued 40 years ago?
Okay, because were all of those bowl games put on TV in the same manner they are now? I don't think they were. College football, basically no sport was, but way back when you're talking about, you would have one college football game a week. And so those bowl games happened, sure, but people weren't seeing them or being exposed to them and being able to associate them all with each other. You could guarantee that you'd see the Sugar Bowl every year. You couldn't guarantee that you'd see the Garden State Bowl or whatever the hell you called it.
Well, I'm probably as old as most of our audience here. I've been watching college football for like 45 years, and I don't remember any time in my life as a college football fan that I could not watch every bowl game.
Okay, then. So you're saying all these bowl games with 6 and 6 teams and stuff were, oh, by the way, when did that start? Because I know at one point, I'm pretty sure at one point you had to have winning records to get into these games.
Well, it simply started when college football went to a 12-game regular season, because before that it was a 6-5 record was required.
Okay. Oh, I'm not as old as you are, but I did not think that all of these games, every single bowl game was always on TV. I mean, ESPN really wasn't even that big of a thing until, honestly, the 2000s. So I'm finding it a little difficult to believe that you were always able to find these bowl games when, honestly, even back then, they didn't even really show sports during the weekdays. It's honestly just a weekend thing.
Ever since cable television has been in play, which is technically like the early to mid 70s, but realistically more like the inception of ESPN in 1979, if we clicked on the list of 1980 bowl games, I guarantee you I watched all of them.
Okay, so 80s, mid 80s, going up to it, sure. But I still think the point is still valid, though, that so when your kids came home with a test on, with a grade on their test, you didn't put a C or an F. You didn't take that up to the refrigerator. You waited till they got an A to show that one off.
Yep.
So don't you think that if bowl games, let's pretend, let's count the playoff games, and just for the sake of argument, let's keep it at the 4 teams right now. Let's count the playoff games, the New Year's Six bowls, and whatever's left of the cotton and the sugar and fiesta and all that haven't been taken up by either of those two. So what do you got? Probably 12 games or something. So if you had to win 9-ish or more games just to get into a bowl game,
Yeah.
don't you think that those games that only these few teams got in would mean so much more?
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand the argument. So you want to eliminate all the bowl games to a certain point to where you have to be 9-3 to reach a bowl game.
I just threw that out. 8-4, probably. Let's go with that. 8-4. That's a solid B+ season.
So you are making bowls more exclusive than they've been since the early 1970s.
Yeah.
Even though you admit that well past the 1970s, that all these bowl games, the major bowl games, Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl, etc., were not devalued from all these other underling bowl games, but now suddenly they are for some reason.
So they are for some reason now, and that reason is just because what I said earlier is that college football has become a lot more social media influence. In fact, you made one of the topics on your video this today was social media. So I'm not saying that this just sort of happened out of nowhere, but something happened. Something started making people think these bowl games are, quote, meaningless.
The playoff.
So I'm asking you, and by the way, I'm answering your questions. I would like it if you'd answer mine. If we did that, don't you think that those bowl games would be viewed as more valuable?
Well, I will agree with this, that the less bowl games we have means the better teams will be playing in the bowl games, and we will eliminate, obviously, the worst of the teams that currently qualify for bowl games. So obviously, the bowl games will involve a higher caliber of team. That is obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So is that a bad thing?
Issue is, no, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I do understand the point, and I believe the point is valid. That, and you've made it, other people have made it, somebody just made it, they called within the last couple of nights that they believe that postseason play in college football should be a reward for a successful season. Now we have to define what a successful season, and I think most of us can agree that going 5-7 is not successful in any way. Certainly that's not, and even 6-6 is not successful. It's mediocre. So I understand that point. However, we have another issue involved, and that's the free marketplace. So we're in America, and basically, unless there is a governing body that is going to rule against there being additional bowl games, and now we have to actually not just not add more bowl games, we have to go back in time and eliminate bowl games that are obviously making money. There's a reason they exist. This is one thing that I don't know that a lot of people understand, that these bowl games don't exist because just somebody decided, hey, I want to see more football games. They exist because they are successful, or they wouldn't be added. If there weren't corporation sponsors and there weren't TV networks that deemed it, okay, they have accountants that determine we can add A and B and C and and this is what it costs us versus this is what the revenue is. And this makes sense for us to, we're not just going to add a bowl game on Friday afternoon at 2:00 in the afternoon because we've got nothing else to show. No, they're doing it because they make money. Therefore, somebody is going to have to tell the television networks, ESPN in particular, that support all of this, and sponsors that, you know what, even though you can support it and you want it, and the viewing population, regardless of all the criticism out there, proves that they demanded and wanted, we're still not going to have this bowl game because these teams aren't good enough.
All right. So I was purposely keeping the corporate and money thing out of the conversation because obviously, yes, you don't have to explain that to me. I realize none of everything I'm saying, absolutely none of it is ever going to even be a thought in people who control this sort of thing in their head because of what you just stated. It's a financial idiocy of all levels to do it. I'm just sort of propose, but I think both you and I, if we could control things irrespective of how money works and make changes to college football,
Sure.
that would be better for the sport, but not necessarily make it more money. I think there's things you and I would both do. So
Sure. Yep.
I was purposely ignoring that part.
Yep.
But yes, just for the record, I know that everything I'm saying is financially stupid. But just from a pageantry and value standpoint, I just wonder if we did this sort of thing where you had to have an 8-4 season or more, so you had to come home with a B+ on your report card for the fall, then I just wonder if people would be really a lot more into these bowl games, because they're a reward for all really good teams who really got out there and got it done. I wonder if you'd have less players quitting all the time if they knew that maybe they didn't necessarily make it to the playoffs, but they still got into sort of a VIP, exclusive club membership. Only certain teams got in. So that's just really what I'm going for. I just sort of wonder, because there's so many games, and because, as you pointed out, there's always been this many games, but just because now in 2022, just the way the society is and the social media and how people talk about everything, I just wonder if there were less bowl games, would people be a lot more into them?
I will ask myself this one question. We just had 2 college football bowl games on Friday, and we had 6 on Saturday. Would I have rather had no bowl games on those 2 days, or have had those 8 games on those 2 games? And my answer is I would have rather had those 8 football games this past weekend than not have them.
No, I respect that. I honestly fall into the other camp. I would rather instead of those 6 games on Saturday, I would have rather there been one big game that everyone's marking on the calendar that they want to see. So, but that's just me. Anyway, I've taken up enough of your time, so that's my stance on the bowls. You and I have actually never talked about that before, but there we go.
Always good to hear from you.
You too, man.
Have a good one. Reasonable Gump breaking it down for us. All right. I appreciate everybody being here, and we've got an abbreviated show tonight, so thank you so much for that. I will be back throughout the day on Monday with plenty of videos being posted. And next live show, I don't exactly know when. We will be live for the USC live show on Monday night at 11 Eastern and 8 Pacific for sure. And then, of course, our boys, Tim, Tony, Rick, Ben, Jordan, Will, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out, will be live tonight with the College Football After Dark show. One Scoop John. Yes. And I see Connor Johnson here in the live chat. Connor, I reached out to you via email because I wanted some of your take on Oregon State football. And we do have a super chat to close us out here. Ryan, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I so much appreciate it. Maybe we get into some sort of NIT where 1 and 12 are in playoff and 13 and whatever are in NIT bracket for the winner of the losers. Last word. Well, the NIT is, of course, a basketball tournament in which teams can play multiple games. Football, that is not possible without spacing out the games because of the wear and tear on every individual. So maybe I'm not understanding what you're proposing here. We get into some sort of NIT, which in a sense we already have because we have minor bowl games versus more major bowl games. So we also have Mark here saying, Mark, I hope you are doing well and wish you the best for you and your family for the holidays. Thank you so much for that, Mark. We appreciate it. That's Mark with a C, who is a tremendous viewer and commenter to the chat. I hope you take some time for yourself and decompress. I hope I do too. Mark, thank you so much for that. I'm off to a meeting that leads us right into our College Football After Dark show at 10:45 Eastern time. So please check that out. That's always a fun conversation, and we will see you soon.